Broadcasting live from beautiful Independence, Ohio. Welcome to the program. Be here until midnight, and then you'll hear Dreamland after that when I go home. How's about that? You know, I haven't had a chance to comment on a few things. And one of them was the Bush twins. If you care to join me, 578-1100 in the 216 area code. Toll free, which has been pretty quiet for a while. 888-723-WTAM. And I was just thinking about these pesky Bush twins and how they're getting beat up because they ordered a margarita in a restaurant. Now, and if you haven't heard, and I listened to The Weekend, what was his name? Michael Graham on the Weekend program. Listen to him, and a lot of folks just seem to use this as a chance to try and beat up on the president. Say, see, look what happened. See what happened? He had a drinking problem years ago, and now his daughters, here they are underage, and they're trying to buy alcohol. And I thought, you know, we really are kind of screwed up in this country. I mean, anything to pick on the president, I'm certain. I happen to think that the president's doing a fine job. I'm looking forward to my tax refund check, which I know I will get. And you will get one as well. Then we were promised something, and by God, we're going to get it. Now, what more can you ask for out of a presidential candidate? And he's turned out to be a fine president so far. And people vilify him for being, oh, he's dumb. He never actually went to Harvard. He bought his business administration degree or whatever. Oh, hogwash and nonsense. And these are the same people, and I've gone over this ground a million times, that will vote Democrat no matter what, no matter when, and there's no debating the issue. And I don't care if you went to college or not, and I know plenty of people that did, that will sit there and argue with me, and I look right at them and I say, how old are you? You're too old to be that liberal. Does that make sense? That old statement that Churchill said rings truer than ever. To be young and not be liberal is to have no heart, and to be old and not be conservative is to have no brain. And it's then to vilify the president or say there's something wrong because of what his daughters did trying to order a margarita. You know, my mother's, obviously, I'm 40 years old. She's a little older than I am. And even though she votes Democrat, she's a conservative woman. And I asked her what she thought, and she said, well, you know, in Europe, and she's vacationed in Europe a couple of times, she says, in France, you can drink when you're 15. And I said, you know, for all the harm that I know alcohol does, we really ought to be able to drink at a reasonable age. And I know it might sound like a broken record, but if you can join the armed services and go and fight and die for your country, you should be able to drink a beer, don't you think? I mean, I remember the good old days of 3-2 beer. Do you remember that? And it was just a lower proof beer. And I believe I don't remember exactly. Maybe you'll tell me. I think it was if you were 19 to 21-year-olds could drink 3-2 beer, and you had to wait to get the high-powered stuff. Well, believe you me, when you drank 3-2 beer, I'll use an off-color term here. They called it piss water. Because obviously you had to drink a whole bunch of it to try and feel the effect of it. And thusly you had to urinate often. Well, that's not to say that you could not get drunk from 3-2 beer. I mean, it's interesting how the laws of the land are and how they play out. If you go to a grocery store and you want to buy beer and the girl behind the counter is under 21, she can't ring it up. Then she'll call, Barney, could you come on and ring this up for me? And she'll have to get somebody else. Or sometimes if they're really permissive types, they'll say, can you ring this up for me? So I have to reach over and run the 12-pack across the beeper, the scanner, so that they physically are. But you know, if you go in there and buy a 6-pack of O'Doul's or one of those non-alcoholic beers, they can ring those. Well, those are not alcohol-free. If you look at them, it says contains less than 0.5% or something like that. Well, that means they've got a little alcohol in them. So if we want to get to be the sticklers, maybe they shouldn't be able to ring cough syrup up either. Because if you're 14, you can go buy cough syrup and get drunk. Or you can buy spray paint and inhale it. And it's just the way, it's just the way this nation works. We apparently seem to be a group of people in this country who enjoy escaping reality. Doesn't it seem that way? Because you can argue all kinds of points. Don't take away people's alcohol. Some people will say, the guns should go. And other people should well, I guess they A lot of people think that the guns should be more available. You should be able to carry one around. You should be able to buy 100 a year if you want to. Somewhere there should be some middle ground. But there's no middle ground on one thing. And you can say the war on drugs isn't working, or we can argue that I think pot should be legalized even though I don't smoke the stuff. Someone offered me some. It was at my 40th birthday party or thereabouts. Somebody was, here, and stuck a joint in my face. And I said, no, thanks. And they looked at me like I'm some sort of a party pooper. I said, no, I've tried the stuff. I haven't had any reefer or pot or marijuana. What was it? And I can't remember Good Board Opera, Rob. Was it 84 or 86? I think it was 86. So that means 15 years. Well, P.J. O'Rourke, Republican Party reptile and ex-editor of the National Lampoon, who's a humorist and writes for Rolling Stone occasionally, said you get to a certain age and you should pick your poison. You just cannot physically. I don't know if you're familiar with Hunter Thompson, the author. Apparently drinks and does drugs still. He'd be in his 60s. Well, I don't think he could drink and do as many drugs on a regular basis as he may lend you the impression he does. He'd be dead. It's possible that he's not. The last I read, his drug of choice was Scotch and NyQuil. Now look at Keith Richards. Keith Richards will never be as old as he looks. Never. He'll never live to be 112. Actually, he looks older than that. This fine line we have in this country with alcohol and alcohol abuse and how they jump on the Bush twins. You know what I said? Somebody said, look at those two daughters of the president. And I go, just look at them. They're kind of hot. First thing I thought, I said, they're kind of hotties. You know, they're not models. What do you think, Rob? Let me ask you. Do you think those Bush twins were hot? I thought they were okay. I thought they were certainly better looking than Chelsea Clinton.
I got to be honest with you. You've never ever seen a really good picture.
Okay. Well, they were showing some shots on CNN, and different news organizations had pictures of them, and they're kind of cute. They're cutie pies. I mean, look at some of the ugly presidential children there's been. I mean, the only good ones were maybe Carol and Kennedy.
See, when people make fun of me because I thought Chelsea was good looking.
Oh, my God.
See, there you go.
Not to me. Not at all. What about Amy Carter? And the Reagan kids were too old for me to care less, but the Bush twins, they're kind of hot. That's all I thought of. I didn't care if they wanted to order a margarita or not. That's our problem in this country, is we focus, and maybe I'm way off base, and somebody will probably call from MAD. I'm in DAM, Drunks Against Mad Mothers. Formed the organization myself some years ago to try and combat the evil onslaught of phone calls while I was sleeping from people that wanted to try and bilk money out of me to stop people from drinking at too early of an age. You know what? Ask yourself as an adult, ask yourself an honest question. Would you be happy if they took away alcohol? No, you'd be upset. You'd be bummed, right? Well, Rob in the other room doesn't seem to care. That you could find a substance depending on the poison that you pick. You could find a substance, and you would find a substance to escape reality, and that's just the way Americans operate. Americans want to have a martini or smoke a joint or do something to relax at the end of the day, to take their wee heads are too heavy from the problems of the world, and they need to escape. And by God, I'll tell you, if they tried outlawing alcohol again in this country, there'd be a public outcry like you wouldn't believe. Look at everything that surrounds us. Look at sports. Baseball, football, hockey, auto racing. How many of them are sponsored by beer? Big beer companies sponsored Budweiser and Pabst and this and that. So I happen to think that we're a country of people that like to escape. And these two girls obviously weren't driving. I think they should have had their margarita, by golly. There's much worse things going on in the world, as far as I'm concerned, than a little bit of drinking. And you know what's going to happen? They say that there are a lot of people that are in college that are binge drinking. But most of them, and I don't have a percentage, but most of them quit drinking like that once they graduate from college. There's going to be a segment of society that's an alcoholic forever. You could drink mouthwash. You could drink Aqua Velva. It's got alcohol in it. Those people will always find a way. I think some people want a mild escape from reality. And then, of course, there's going to be people that are going to want to be blotto all the time. But in any way, shape, or form, to try and attach this to the president and say, see, he's a bad dad. And if he's a bad dad, how can he be a good leader? Well, first off, I don't believe Dad was there. And if Dad was there, I think they would have been allowed. Our laws are all fuzzy and funny. You're not allowed to back out of your driveway. Are you aware of that? You're not allowed to back out of your driveway. And if you hit somebody, they'll charge you with improper backing. But if they wanted to charge people for improper backing, they could do it every day because everybody backs out of their driveway. Well, not me. But I have a sort of a parking lot. And that's why I pull out. Always pull out on time, just like TWA. But they have these nebulous laws and archaic things in the books and things written, and it wastes our time. I think it just wastes a lot of time. All right, Billy, you're on the air.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rick, on the 3-2 beer. I was 18 when you were allowed to drink 3-2 beer, and then it switched to 19, and then it went to 21. So I kind of got the whole gist of that drinking. You know what I mean?
So did I think, because we're probably about the same age. I'm 40.
I'm 38.
Okay, so I remember because there was, at some point, I got grandfathered because I was over 19, but when they changed the law and raised it to 19, I was still allowed to buy high-powered beer because I think after 19, was that how it worked? 3-2 beer was 18 to 19 or something?
Exactly, and then it switched. And
whatever it switched to, I got grandfathered in, so I was happy because I got to buy regular beer.
Well, I tell you, I'm not an alcoholic. I rarely drink now, once in a great while, but it's got to be, you got to make it to 18. It's not fair. I mean, they drive at 16, right? So what do they got to look forward to? Not that everybody wants to try to drink a beer or you know, whatever. But you're right.
I think the drinking, I guess the bottom line of my whole spiel, my whole argument is I think the drinking age should be 18.
I agree with you.
All right.
Most definitely.
All right. Thank you very much. If you can, and I thought about this argument as I was driving in because I thought it sounds so tired and stale and old. I mean, it really does sound like the same old when you say, but it's the truth. If you can fight and die for your country, you should be able to drink a beer. You know what's coming up next week on Wells Webster and Coleman? If you got a son or daughter between 8 and 14, they could have a chance to throw out the first pitch at Jacobs Field for an Indians game. Doesn't that sound like a great kind of prize? Your chance to qualify. Keep listening for it. It's from Smith Dairy, Ruggles Ice Cream, the Tribe, and the big one on Monday. So you got kids, and a lot of you do. That sounds like a great prize. That'd make that kid's summer, wouldn't it? Never forget it. Channel 3 weather from Eileen McShay tonight. Cool. Upper 40s. Tomorrow, sunny, mid-60s. Hey, sunny and mid-60s. Currently 55. Hey, that's not bad. Finally, a day in the forecast where it doesn't say rain.
From WCAM, 1100 Cleveland, Rick Gilmour.
Yep, that is I. Oh, there's so much going on. I'll tell you. I got so many things. I wonder if I'll overload this computer. I have so many things going on in here. I'm trying to pull up the cybervote. And see, now, oh, boy. I don't know what I did, but whatever I did, it's not working. I'll get you the results of that cybervote. That Finley song, I thought why would they want to retire it? Am I out of the loop? I mean, and now this thing, oh, gee. Rob, you're going to have to figure out my computer when you get a moment in there because I think I overloaded something and now it won't do anything. All right, that's fine. This is talk radio. I'll just talk. I was discussing earlier and even before the program, I've had this conversation with people, and it seemed like a tired argument, but there are many sides to it. If you're 18, should you be allowed to drink? Now, I know I did a lot of crazy things when I was younger, and I was speaking with my board operator, Rob, who's an ex-Marine, and he said that he did not think that kids should be allowed to drink when they're 18. A lot of irresponsible things have been done, and kids bring guns to school now. AKs and Uzis and all that sort of thing, and all you need to do is throw alcohol into the mix. Well, I would hope by 18 they're out of school. Well, I would only hope. Okay. Hi, Barbara. You're on the big one.
Hi, Rick.
Yeah.
This is Barb from Maple Heights. So, I've been listening to this. This has been a conversation all weekend since, Bush's daughters. These girls are, this is typical. Everybody's making such a big thing about it. I don't see anything wrong with it. The girl, I agree with that. But what I wanted to say was about the drinking age. I had the same thing, 3-2 beer. I'm 46 years old, okay? What upsets me is, something's going on right now in my family, and it just do you agree with my kid got a DUI, which was underage, okay? He had a .04 reading Okay? Where if you or I were in the car, we wouldn't, I don't believe in drinking and driving.
How high?
0.04. He was under the legal limit.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Whereas you and I would be in the car, we would have been fine to drive home. Okay?
Right.
Okay? Now, this kid's 19 years old. He gets this. And even though he's under 21, they don't classify it as an underage because you had to be under 18. Gets the full treatment. 6 months in jail, 5 months suspended. He spent 30 days in jail. Car was booted for 120 days.
Wow.
What else happened to him?
Don't worry, Rob. I got the computer fixed.
And, you think this is right? Kids today are going to, there is still social drinkers out there. It makes me sick when I see how these kids are partying this and that. But for someone to get a DUI and have that on the record, you don't get that expunged. That's on there for life, okay? But yet they don't call it an underage. They treat you just like a full DUI.
Well, here's how crazy it is. If you talk to cops, they'll say, how they used to give you a ride home sometimes and let you park your car?
That's over with.
They say they can't. A lot of times they just cannot do that because what if you went home and you fell down the steps and broke your leg and you said, well, the cops gave me a ride home because I was drunk, so they knew I was drunk, and why did they let me fall down the steps and break my leg? Well, you got to take responsibility for your own actions in this world. Right. I mean, if I were in that situation and a cop offered me a ride, I'd kiss his feet. I'd say, thank God.
Right, that's it. That's what my son said. I'm a couple doors from home, get in the car, you're arrested. Took away your license for 1 year. To boot your car, it was just ridiculous. Where like I said, where you and I, we wouldn't have been charged with anything.
I know it's a terrible situation. That's just the way it works out sometimes. Maybe it's not so terrible. Maybe there's both sides to the argument. If I say if you're 14 years old and you kill somebody, you should be treated as an adult. Well, if you're 19 years old, should you get the full treatment for a DUI? 0.04, and that sounds like not even a whole beer. Anyway, the result should, our cybervote at WTAM.com, should Triv put Chuck Finley song to rest? Yes, 56%, no, 44%. Well, I don't know. I thought it was kind of amusing. Perhaps it's just overused. Now with coverage of what in the world's happening, here's our very own Cliff Bakley.
Rick Gilmour.
You poked the thing through or you didn't poke the thing through, okay? Pokey.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
Hey, you heard that promo from Mike Trevisano? Well, speaking of that, Triv's going to be at the Browns golf outing tomorrow at Weymouth Country Club, and you can win Brooks and Dunn's tickets with Blossom. So, Triv's, what the life, huh? It's going to be tough work being out there at a Browns golf outing. Oh, I understand. He'll be working, right? People think that if you fly off to Florida to cover the Indians, that you're not working. People think if you go to a remote, you're not working. We're working. We work. That's what we're doing. Work, work, work. Talk, talk, talk. Talking about because of the Bush twins, Bush daughters, should drinking be allowed at age 18? I was thinking, when I was 13, I was driving, not legally. I think the first time I drank beer, first time I drank a lot of beer, I was 14. And it's interesting because think back, and it's always the fuddy-duddies. As we get older, then we say, heaven forbid if kids should act like we acted, because we're lucky to have made it to our age. And it makes you feel like a fuddy-duddy, doesn't it? Let's make more laws and make it more difficult. And I guess being a kid is more difficult, and maybe their need to escape is there as well, even though we say, no, not a good idea, shouldn't be illegal. Well, think about this, though. If you drink beer and you still drink beer, or you drink booze and you still drink booze, the first time you drank, did you throw up? First time I drank a lot of beer, I threw up. Now, consider the emotional attachment to something that's considered escapism. When the first time you do it, it makes you sick, but you keep doing it. Like cigarettes. I know a friend of mine smoked a whole pack of cigarettes in one day, and he threw up. And that's been 25 years ago, and he still smokes. Well, that seems a little unusual, doesn't it? I guess habits die hard. Hey, Tim, you're on the big one.
Hey, how you doing?
All right.
Listen, I think the problem is that we have our priorities in this country all screwed up. Like that last lady there, I feel sympathy for her son, and if this thing come down to the pike, the federal government want to make it even lower. I think something like 0.2. That means if you have a can of beer and get in your car, you're going to be arrested and pulled over. And that's why I feel that today, I think it'll be more of an outrage today if you tried the prohibition against guns than if you would against alcohol.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I don't know. Look at truck drivers. If you're a truck driver and you got a CDL, you lose your job. They used to take truck drivers if they got a DUI, and they'd put them on the dock and let them work on the dock and load the trucks and whatnot until they got their license back. Now they just take away your job.
Well, now, it's because, like I say, we have our priorities kind of screwed up. I think that the legal age, in my view, should be 21 for everything. You shouldn't be able to be drafted until you're 21. If you're charged with a crime under the age of 21, you should be treated as a minor. And I think if you do a serious crime when you're under the age of 21, once you become 21, then your record should be expunged. That lady's 19-year-old son, his record should be expunged. This probably was the guy's first offense. Hey, he made a mistake. It was goofy.
Yeah, I know, and I think back on it, and I think, how many times could I have been pulled over and been given a DUI when I was a kid? I mean, if you lower those numbers, I mean, it's an extremely, how can I put it? I think a lot of times, I understand that they have the best of intentions for pulling people over, but I think it also generates tons of revenue.
Exactly.
I mean, look at the lawyers. There are people that go out, and they get a lawyer when they get a DUI, and it doesn't get them out of anything.
No, exactly.
It costs them a couple of grand. It goes into the lawyer's pocket.
Yeah, it's a revenue-raising device. And a lot of these wacky laws that are implemented by zealot legislators are nothing but revenue-raising devices, because most of the time these people are attorneys, and when they get out of the office, they still have work for themselves. You just can't protect people from cradle to grave.
I know, and you know what they ought to do? They ought to be able to have, if a cop pulls you over, they ought to have a form and say, listen, you were doing something wrong, and I want you to sign this form that says if I do take you home and you fall down and crack your skull, you're not going to sue us. And be able to give people rides home like they used to, and be able to say, park your car. And remember that story about the cop that was making the people strip down to their underpants or walk home naked?
Yeah, some wacky guy.
Well, I'd much rather walk home naked than get my car towed and cost thousands and thousands of dollars and not be able to drive.
Exactly, and then have a DUI on your record and have a boot on your car. I don't know about that, because then they become a taxi service. I think what you should have is if you go to a local tavern to drink, and the bartender should know that you're at your limit, he should be able to call you a cab and pick up the tab for the cab to take you home.
Well, they do have the towed program out there, that towing operators working to eliminate drunk driving. And you can call some of these tow companies. They'll come to the bar, tow your car for free, not to another bar. They'll tow you home so that your car is there in the morning, so that you can, and they don't charge anything. And that way your car's there, and you're not, hopefully not going to go out and drive anymore because you were smart enough to call them. And if you had a few bucks, maybe tip the tow truck driver. But nobody seems to use it.
Yeah, one last quick point.
Sure.
Here, and I'll get off. America was once a free country, but as we live longer, we're going to lose even more and more freedoms. And it's going to seem in a few years like everything that we do is going to be some type of legislation against it or to protect us. That's why I say keep your guns, everybody. Buy as many guns as you possibly can, because in time to come, we're going to need them. Thank you.
Amen, brother. Hey, you hung at my ear. I was going to hang up on you in timely fashion. More and more and more laws. We've become so we're just heaped and heaped of... I'll bet you every one of us is breaking 15 or 20 laws every day, and we don't even realize it. Like the backing out of your driveway thing. And we just get to the point where we have enough other things to worry about in life. Now there's 8 zillion laws. I'd like to hear from a cop and have them anonymously tell me if they think there's too many laws and too much paperwork. One person does something wrong, and we all have to pay for it. That stinks. Hey, John.
Hey.
Howdy.
How you doing?
Great.
I want to play a game with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is this going to be a fun game?
You're a talk show host, right?
Is this going to be a fun game?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a talk show host.
On and on and on and on. Gilly will love it.
Okay.
Okay. You're a talk show host, right?
Right.
And you got your finger on that button to disconnect me.
Right.
Okay. Let's exchange insults, just like Conan O'Brien.
I wasn't aware that Conan O'Brien exchanged insults.
Well, no, he has that staring game. Let's stare at each other.
Okay.
Okay. Gilly.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Am I supposed to be insulting or just say something nice?
You're a public figure and I'm not.
It's nice to talk to you too.
Who hired you?
Ray Davis, my boss. This isn't much of a game. This is more like 20 questions.
Well, the people who follow this will do it much better than I do.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Am I supposed to ask you something now?
I'm looking for a naked woman.
Are you really? Well, if you're at home, you're probably not going to find one. You probably have to go to some place like a strip joint where they have naked women.
No. I'm a professional talk show caller.
And you're looking for a naked woman? But you don't.
Well,
you're obviously a professional talk show caller because you do not have a naked woman.
I didn't pay for my first chance.
For a woman, neither did I. I have never paid for sex.
Okay.
Well, aside from the usual, I mean, it's going to cost, dinners and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Good. You're a moral man.
Oh yeah, I've never cheated on a woman or anything like that.
Yeah, at least publicly.
No, I can tell you straight up, I've never cheated on a woman.
Okay.
I'm being completely honest.
Well, that's cool. I've never had a woman.
Well, how old are you?
41.
You've never been with a woman?
I'm older than you. Can you believe it?
What? Yeah, you're older than me and you've never had a woman?
No.
Wow.
You know why?
Why?
Because the first woman I find will be the woman I have forever.
Oh, you mean you're waiting for marriage?
No, she is.
Well, it sounds like you are too.
Handsome.
How do you...
Handsome to a T. A man that every woman wants but can never have.
You?
Is that a switch?
Is that you?
Woohoo!
You. You're a really good-looking guy, but you're holding off for you're 41 and you're holding off until you get married? How do you know when you find this woman that...
Gilly.
What about... I don't know where this game is going.
It's going to the point where...
That's where it's going. I thought this was going to be a fun game. I think I need a cigarette now.
Rick Gilmore.
I guess that means really mad.
On News Radio WTAM 1100.
I couldn't figure out that game at all. Caller called and said he was handsome and 41 and never had a woman. Did you know that Earl Woods, Tiger Woods' dad, tells TV Guide he doesn't think the Tiger, who's 25, will get married before he's 30. Maybe not even that soon. Earl Woods said his son is focused on becoming the best golfer ever and has a lot to accomplish in the game of golf. Earl said, quote, "Let's face it, a wife can sometimes be a deterrent to a good game of golf. The finite little problems like that would destroy him." Tiger's on the loose again after breaking with his girlfriend of 2 years, broke up with her. Well, geez, can't you function in life with... I think it's easier to function in life with a woman. I mean, have you seen those guys, and we were talking about underage drinking or drinking in general. You ever seen those guys in bars that are sitting there and they're like 40-some years old and they're 50-some years old and they're by themselves? And they don't have a woman because they usually came in with one, and then they come in and sit and stare at their beer. How depressing. They need alcohol. Hi, Ken, you're on the air.
Hi, Joey. Thanks for taking my call.
I asked the question if a police officer would like to anonymously comment on whether or not there are too many laws.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of the laws anymore are taking the judgment ability away from police officers. What's happening is they make them so cut and dry that you don't really have the ability to make an opinion-based decision. Everything is just so technical, and if you don't follow it, you lose your job. You do follow it, you're the bad guy. It's made things a lot more difficult for us, in general.
I mean, do cops ever give anybody a ride home anymore if they've had a little too much to drink?
Sure they do. Absolutely.
And I think they should, too.
Yeah, well, you know, obviously when a police officer calls in here, a lot of times he's going to be the bad guy, you know, and I'm not calling in to defend, you know, DUI laws or police officers in general, but I will tell you there is a bit of misinformation that a lot of the public seems to have about how high, you know, their level is if they've had 2 beers. That's simply not true. You know, I'm certified through the state of Ohio, and I have the ability to see the effects of alcohol before, during, and after drinking, and how it measures on a BAC level, being a 0.01 or 0.08. And you'd be very surprised. There's a misnomer. 2 beers doesn't get you at the limit. If it does, you're the exception, not the rule. There have been scientific studies since 1975 that show that if you're a 0.10, you have had plenty of alcohol, and that you are not going to be taken to jail and given a DUI for 2 beers. That's just simply not true. There's a lot of people out there that think that, you know, I drink 1 beer an hour, I can't drive now. You know, the ability that people have in experience in driving really determines whether or not somebody gets pulled over in the first place. You know, there are people that don't drink at all. They go out and have 3 beers. They could be under a 0.10, but appear to be absolutely drunk out of their mind. There are people that drink every weekend who could drink 6, 7 beers, be a 0.11, and you never know it.
Hey, Ken, hang on just a sec. Let me sneak in the weather. Channel 3 weather from Eileen McShade tonight. Cool, upper 40s currently, 55 in Cleveland, 55. You know, this has been done before on other radio programs, but I thought maybe I should try that sometime here. If I can arrange to get a ride home, I would like to have a police officer come down here with a breathalyzer, a portable job. They have those, don't they? And
yes, they do. I
could sit here do a 2-hour program and drink a beer as many as I could hold, which would probably be a beer every 15 minutes. And that would be pushing it, because if I'm out in a bar, I certainly don't want to drink a beer every 15 minutes, or, you know what I'm saying? It's just too much. But for the sake of radio, drink a beer every 15 minutes, and after 2 hours, see what I'd blow on that meter.
Well, that's exactly what the school that I attend in does. They take 6, 7 different people, different ages, different sizes, some that have eaten, some that don't, and feed them up to 18 shots of alcohol in 2 hours. And you would be so surprised at some of the levels that people return.
18?
So, absolutely. They have a controlled situation where they're monitored.
I think you'd be dead.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's what a lot of people think. Depends on the proof, depends on the alcohol, depends on what it is. Now, these people were drinking 80 proof type of alcohol, and that's a lot lower than a lot of these brands out today, you know, the Jägermeisters and all the tough, really heavy, intoxicating liquors. Now, you're talking about 1 ounce of alcohol. That's basically how it's measured. 1 ounce of alcohol is what they're feeding these folks, and there are people that are doing 18 shots and blowing a 0.15, and that's relatively low when people would think, my gosh, that guy should be 2, 3 times the legal limit.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to get at. There's a lot of misinformation of how high a 0.10 really is. And it's a lot higher than people think.
I just see a lot of people, and it's pretty obvious that if you are driving and you're at a bar, I mean, I see people leaving. I think to myself, you know, if they get pulled over, they should somehow question the barmaid about that person being overserved. Because I've seen people that are still being served in bars that are clearly not capable or should not be able to. I mean, you think to yourself, I hope they make it home without killing somebody else.
Well, that's whenever we do investigate a very serious crash or fatality, we do often trace it back to the establishment they were last at, because there is some liability that's there. Now, I don't know the exact legal laws that bartenders are required to, you know, monitor these people again, because the opinions, we're not even able to do opinion-based decisions anymore. Everything is so cut and dry. So I know that when you have a bartender who obviously is working for tips and is working for the bar owner, they obviously need that revenue. So therefore, you got a catch-22 situation there. But they can be liable for somebody's death if they overserve, but it's very difficult to have them place any type of standard when it comes to monitoring these people. But yeah, you're right. That happens a lot more than you think it does too.
There are people out there that say, I'd love to own a bar. And I don't think I'd want to own a bar. All the liability and all the hoops they have to jump through nowadays, it's a lot more difficult than just hanging a license on a wall and serving booze.
Well, sure, and therefore, if you don't have the right bar and you don't have the right patrons, then you're going to draw attention from the police, and then you're never going to have a successful business depending on how you run that bar. And there are a lot of things out there. People think, well, cops sit outside of bars and cops sit and wait for these guys. Well, yeah, sure, that's our job and that's what we have to do. And in extreme cases, we take action. But for the most part, part, the DUI laws, I believe, are pretty fair. They're thinking about lowering it to .08 now, and I know that the bar associations are up have an uproar about that because they're going to lower that limit. Now, if that's going to be passed through or not, I don't know. But I'll tell you, it's very difficult. People talk about getting DUIs. Police officers have a very frustrating time when they arrest somebody for DUI who clearly are DUI, and they get out of it, and that makes everything very difficult to pass fair rules across the board when you've got a guy intoxicated who shouldn't be behind the wheel, and therefore 3 weeks later he walks out with nothing, and it makes it very tough to enforce DUI rules. And whether or not this legislation is going to help, I guess only time will show that.
I've only have about 30 seconds for this hour, but can you give me an answer to the age-old question? Do you think that the drinking age should be 18?
No, because the experience of the drivers they do not have enough experience to handle a situation, especially if they're intoxicated. No.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, well, now there's something I hadn't considered. And I sound like a fuddy-duddy if I say that. I mean, I consider that I had a lot of experience driving by the time I was 18 because I'd been driving since I was 13. And I finally got caught because obviously you weren't supposed to be driving around when you're 15. But there's a lot of drivers out there that are teenage drivers that just don't have enough experience, let alone getting some alcohol in them. And maybe, well, got another hour to debate that point. And maybe if that's the case, then maybe we should raise the driving age. No, maybe they should get that. Well, maybe they need to be 16 to get that driving experience by the time they are 21, and then they're allowed to drink and drive. Because that's what you're doing if you're going to a bar, aren't you? You're drinking and driving. Now, here's Cliff Bakley.
Continuing coverage coming up at the bottom of the hour. Bulletins at 1. News Radio, WTAM 1100.
The following material may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, she. Does that mean we're going to talk dirty? I don't think so. Well, I see Anthony Quinn's dead. That makes, what? Hank Ketchum, the guy who drew Dennis the Menace, Imogene Coca from your show of shows, and Anthony Quinn. Is that the three? They're always supposed to come in threes? Is there any truth to that rumor? We've been debating alcohol this evening, and underage drinking and all that sort of thing.
The Rick Gilmore Show on News Radio WTAM 1100.
Phone number here, 578-1100, and the 216 area code, toll-free, 888-723-WTAM. My board operator, Rob, was mentioning to me that he doesn't always listen to Rush Limbaugh, but he was listening when he was out at his other job. And he said, Rush asked the question, heard noon to 3 here on the big one weekdays, asked the question, when are they going to go after alcohol like they go after tobacco and guns and that sort of thing? When are they going to go after alcohol? Why don't they? Well, I think it's, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's because people like to drink. And I think enough people in this country like to drink that there would be a brouhaha if they went after alcohol. People would be saying, hey, because how many people do you know? Honestly, ask yourself the question, how many people do you know that don't drink? Ever. Now, I'm not talking about people that are recovering alcoholics because they drank too much. They drank enough for 2 or 3 people. I'm talking about how many people do you know that just don't like to drink and don't drink and never do? And maybe it's a function of who my friends are, but most of the people I know, they like to drink on occasion. And if they put some sort of, look at any given Friday or Saturday night. Look at the Flats, a place I try to stay away from. I've gone down to the Flats. Think of the money they make on alcohol down there. I've gone down there where you had to put on hip boots to walk in and out of the men's room in some of them joints without getting pee in your socks. Just the urine is flowing, the beer is flowing, the cash is flowing. There's a lot of money in alcohol. And people are kicking and screaming, and bar owners and everyone else, we heard from a cop last hour, people are upset about that kind of thing. People basically want to be left alone unless something's truly going to hurt them. Toll free, you're on the air.
Yeah, hey, Rick, it's Jerry. How you doing?
Oh, good. This is my Icelandic plumber friend, who, by the way, ladies, is available, and you're calling me from?
Chicago.
And how are we coming in up there?
You're not, you won't be coming in clear for another couple hours, but you'll be off the air by then.
Oh, okay. I just wondered because I was always curious when you get close to, I know we cover 38 states and half of Canada. Sometimes when you get into huge metropolises like Chicago or New York, there's just so many signals that you sometimes get stepped on.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. When I was here couple of weeks ago. It was about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, and TAM was coming in loud and clear. But we tried again at your airtime and this evening, and just can't do it. We heard a little bit of you garbling in the background, but...
Well, here, let me tell you. Let me give you a little setup on what we were talking about. We're talking about the Bush daughters and underage drinking, and how I thought that maybe we should lower the drinking age back to 18 because you can fight and die for your country at 18. I had a police officer call and say he doesn't think that drivers have enough experience at 18 to be out there drinking and driving. And I said, you know what's funny? Well, not funny, haha, but when people leave a bar, if they've been drinking, everyone is drinking and driving.
Right. Well, when
technically,
when we were younger, you get your driver's license at 16, and they had 3-2 beer in Ohio.
That's right.
And you catch quite a buzz on 3-2 beer. It wasn't like...
That's what I was saying. Yeah, you had to drink more of it, and they called it piss water back then. But yeah, it wasn't like you could not get drunk on 3-2 beer. You just bought more of it.
Right. Well, it was. Yeah, and you had a lot more stamina. You could pound down those 20 beers, So.
Well, that's true. I mean, I remember and I beg this question as well. If you do drink, the first time you got drunk, did you throw up?
I was about 5, so I don't remember.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Well, I remember there was a beer called Maximus Super. And it was the strongest malt liquor we could find, which was, I guess we wanted more bang for our buck. And we used to go to a corner store, and we would give the clerk money, and he'd hand us a paper bag. And we'd pay for the beer, and he'd hand us a paper bag. We'd take the bag into the back of the store to the cooler and put whatever we were paying for in there, or maybe sometimes more, and walked out. And it seems to me that I remember drinking Maximus Super and throwing up all over the place. But I thought it was interesting.
I don't remember Maximus Super, but I remember, garaging beer. and the beer was always warm, and you'd take a beer, you shoot it like a warm Colt 45.
Yeah, right.
Put a hole in the bottom with a can opener and cram it down. That always worked real well.
That was a big thing when we were growing up. Everybody that left their garage doors unlocked, if they had a refrigerator with beer in there, that was their tough luck.
Well, basically, my brother's girlfriend's father worked for Stroh's, and he had dozens of cases of beer in his garage, and he always had other kinds of beer too. So we'd always hit up their garage, and he knew it. We asked him about it years later. He goes, he knew that we were snagging some beers. Let me sneak
in Channel 3 weather from Eileen McShea tonight. Cool and upper 40s. Tomorrow sunny and mid 60s. Monday night. Let's look ahead, shall we, Jerry?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, yeah, low 50s, and then you're coming home on Tuesday. It's going to be sunny and 70. Currently 53 in Cleveland. 53.
Oh, well, it's about 53 here in Chicago, too, I believe. It's very nice. I think it is.
Yeah, something like that. Well, it seems like there's always a lively debate when it comes to talking about the use of alcohol, because I don't think that the government goes after alcohol in this country like they go after tobacco or like the groups that go after tobacco and guns and all that, because I think essentially people like the escapism of drinking. I think people enjoy drinking.
Well, it was funny. I was over in Indonesia when I was 16 years old, and there was no drinking age. And my father, of course, I think purposely allowed me to learn the lesson of you drink too much, you feel like crap, and you won't want to drink like that in the future. And
this is like the theory of the father that sits down with his son and says, "Oh, so you want to smoke, huh? Well, here's a pack of cigarettes, smoke them all, or here's a cigar and inhale it until he turns green and throws up."
Exactly.
Well, that obviously was not a deterrent to you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, do you see me drinking liquor very often? I mean, you force a shot down my throat for a party or something, but...
Get a hold of this.
I don't go near the booze.
I know, that's true. That's true. The cop I was speaking with last hour said they have controlled kind of environments where they'll sit people down and they'll feed them shots and then see how they blow at the end of 2 hours. You know how many shots they're doing in this controlled setting? 18 shots in 2 hours.
Well, that's ridiculous.
You have to hold me up after 2 hours drinking that many shots.
Right.
I wouldn't be able to breathe, let alone blow in the machine. That's outrageous.
Well, Rick, you and I, we've tossed back a couple of beers in our day, and the point is that I've never seen you and I in an evening put down maybe more than 2 or 3 shots, along with some beers, that's enough.
I'm the same way you are. If it's a party situation, like my birthday party, people were buying me shots. Well, after about shot number 3, I'm thinking, I hope to God they don't buy me any more shots, because I'm not into that.
Well, do you remember that one night the Smirnoff girls were down at Club Ed?
Yeah, we were at a bar and the Smirnoff girls were down there handing out free drinks.
Now, you and I, we did about 5 or 6, and that was plenty to put us out there.
Oh, I know. I was thinking, gee, I mean, it's nice to have people, and I guess that's the difference between people who drink and people that are just alcoholics, because I'm sure there were people that would follow those Smirnoff girls around from bar to bar if they thought they could keep drinking for free.
Well, of course, because of our charm and our handsome good looks, they were following us around.
Our boyish good looks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm up for free booze, but I'm certainly not going to go overboard. There was a story once about a guy who actually got charged with some sort of a murder charge or something. He hired some guy who was kind of an alkie to watch his liquor store to make sure that people wouldn't break in. And I guess he knew the guy had a drinking problem, and he came back on Monday after leaving the store on, like, Friday night to reopen the store and found the guy dead. The guy drank himself to death in the liquor store. And they held the liquor store owner responsible for that. Because he knew. You know what I mean? He knew that the guy drank.
You know, to get back to your idea about the legality of drinking and all